Hello everybody, welcome to Blue Collar How To Lean To. Today we're going to talk about some work ethic and a possible new series I may be starting. So hang with us. Hello everybody. What I want to talk today about, I'm not really going to do a review on any type of mechanical tips or anything. I just wanted to have a discussion with you right quick. I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can, but I want to start a series on some basic skills. I worked for two world-class manufacturing facilities over my time in fabrication and welding. I started out as a welder, started out sweeping floors in a welding shop in high school, and when the guys would take their lunch breaks, for an hour and go out and play horseshoes, I talked the boss man into letting me go in and sit down with a Heliarc TIG welder and learn how to weld, with a TIG welder and a MIG welder and a stick welder. I sat down and I learned how to do that with a scrap metal. So I'm a little bit old school. My values are somewhat old school. So, but in going to work for one of these manufacturers that I went to work for, and when I was a younger fellow, I kind of thought it was silly. I'd already had probably 9-10 years of experience in building processing equipment, food processing equipment from scratch. I was initially trained to go out to what we called a boneyard, where they had all the old equipment that was wore out and run down. And I was told by the guy that owned the shop at the time, he was 50-something years old then, and he didn't have more than a 4th grade education. But he owned a great shop, had a great business. But he would tell me, when I first started learning how to build equipment, he's like, he'd draw something out on a napkin, draw a picture out, and he'd be like, hey, you think we can build that? Or he would say, hey, you want to know how to build this piece of equipment, go down to the boneyard, take your tape measure and a pencil, and go down and get measurements off of it and build it. So I learned how to build equipment from scratch, from the sheet metal work to the welding to learning motors and gear drives and a lot of different things. Anyway, but about 9 years into it, I went to work for a Japanese company building equipment, and they put us through. I was actually part of a pilot program that they started doing. They were getting to the point where they were just going to hire regular people in, even if you didn't have welding experience or mechanical assembly experience. They were going to hire people in and then put them through this little 2-week program and teach them, give them the basics. So we'll show you how to weld this one little part, we want you to make, or we'll teach you how to, the basics of how tools work. And at the time, I thought it was silly because, I already had 9 or 10 years experience at it, and I was like, I already know how to do all this stuff, man. Hell, I've run a sheet metal department. I've built this equipment and traveled half the United States and installed it, But now that I'm older, I look back at that, and and that combined with this day and time that we live in, where things are a little more, I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but we have a couple generations that's come along now, and mom and dad may not have ever done any type of blue collar hands-on trades type work. So lots of times the kids have come up not knowing these basic things. So anyway, I want to start a little series that I'm going to do on basic tools. Again, this is not for you guys that work on your own cars, have your mechanic shops, have your fabrication shops, whatever. This is not for you. I want to do this for younger people, or older people for that matter, that maybe have never done hands-on skills. So I'm going to start a little series, and it'll be based on such simple things as variations of types of hammers. What are they for? What's some tips and tricks when you're using that tool? Wrenches, sockets, to angle grinders, to, I want to do, certain types of screwdrivers, certain types of screws. What are those screws for? What are certain types of bolts for? I want to do a little series like that for those people that are just starting out. Maybe they've had an inkling or they felt like they had, some kind of thing that drawed them to wanting to learn how to do this type of thing. So I want to do that. I want to put a little series out and show that. Again, this will be a very simplistic series. For some of you, it'll be like, really, that, it's common sense. But for some people, they may not know how to do that. So I want to start a series for that. And that's probably one of the series that I will incorporate into this blue collar how-to. Now, on the other side, while we're doing this video, I thought I want to discuss something else. When I worked for a certain shop, I had a shop foreman that came in for a shop that I was running a sheet metal department for, and I didn't know him, previous. He came in and took over as shop foreman, and he was a really good guy. He was an ex-Army Ranger. He'd done time in Vietnam. But he had a really good mentality and a work ethic that I thought was really cool. One of the first times that when he introduced himself, one of the first times I actually, stood side by side and worked with him, I was actually laying out some sheet metal for a break and shear, which is what bends your metal and shears your metal and your sheets. And I had some stainless steel sheeting laid out, and I was laying out a system. I don't remember what it was. It may have been a cone for some kind of dropper system, for some kind of hopper, type system. I don't remember. But one of the first things he ever said to me was he came over and introduced himself, and he said, "My name's Leo." He said, "I'd like to see what you're doing here, and how you do it." And I was like, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, this guy's a shop foreman, and I'd already heard that he was one of the best pipe welders, out there, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Why is this guy doing this, And but what he said after that was, he said, let me see how you do this. He said, I'd like to, explain to me as you do it, as you lay this out, explain it to me how you're doing it. He said, don't worry about offending me. He said, talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old. He said, I'll take a baby aspirin and I'll be all right in the morning. And that really stuck with me, and it has stuck with me over the years. That here this guy is, I'd already heard these, pretty high value things on him, and he's coming over there talking to me like that. But it really stuck with me. And later on, through the years, I have incorporated that mentality into things. I took it upon myself to be that way. And one of the things I wanted to address was a simple thing of, it's okay to say, I don't know. I have taught my children this as we homeschool. If you check out some of our other videos, you'll see, we do homeschooling, we do some homestead, we do a lot of different things. But, we've homeschooled for 20 plus years, and I've taught my children that same thing, and hopefully it sticks with them. But later on, when I got to running my own crews, upwards to 14 guys at a time I would run, we would build equipment in the shop during the week, and we'd go out on Friday or late Friday night, early Saturday morning. We'd go to wherever we were going, whatever state, and we would install this equipment. And I would have guys that only worked the weekend, because we worked straight through 40, 50-hour weekends, all day, all night, all day, all night. And so I had guys that didn't necessarily work in the shop. They only worked weekends. But I ran into this, quite a few times, of guys that I would bring in, and I'd be like, okay, we've got to put this piece of equipment in. But on the other side of the plant, we've got to put these other pieces of equipment in. I'm just being general here, but I'd say, okay, do you guys know how to put these in, right? And they'd be like, oh yeah, we got it, no problem. I'd be like, okay, we'll take what you need, take the tools, take the welder, whatever you need, and go over there, and you guys get started on that. I'm going to start over here. I'll come by in an hour or 2 hours and check on you, see how things are going. Well, what I'd run into quite often, surprisingly often actually, is I would, an hour and a half or so, 2 hours in, I would go to check on these guys, and they would be putting the piece of equipment in wrong. Lots of times they had a good bit of it already done. It was already portions of it installed. Maybe some of the piping is already installed. And they actually didn't know how to put this piece of equipment in. Now all they had to do was say, no, we've never put that in before. We've never done this. Do you care to come show us? And there's no shame in that. I would have been very happy with, okay, well, just give me a few minutes. Let me get these guys started here, and I will come over and show you how to do that. I thought, that's just, that's where I am. I mean, I'm cool with that. But oftentimes, these guys would go in and we would have to waste another hour and a half, 2 hours cutting this piece of equipment back out. Sometimes to the point that it ruined the piece of equipment that we bought, that we brought with us. It would ruin that piece of equipment, So what my point is it's okay to say, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it. One of my favorite sayings in the world, and my kids will, they've heard it so many times, they probably make fun of me about it behind my back. But one of my favorite sayings in the world is, you're only as smart as the part of the world you're standing in. In other words, I may know how to do this, but at the same time, whatever you do for a living, I don't know how to do that. I'm not in your world. I don't know how to do that. But if I'm in a position where I have to know how to do that, then I at least can come to you and say, hey, I don't know how to do that. Can you show me? Much like Leo would say, explain it to me like I'm a 2 or 4 year old. I'll be okay. I'll take a baby aspirin. I'll be okay in the morning. Explain it to me simply, and that way you understand. Don't let your pride get in the way. Don't let these things keep you, one, making a fool of yourself, but two, once you've been showed, then you do know how. Then you do know how to do it. So anyway, just a little thing I wanted to bring up. Again, new series coming along. Hopefully it'll help some people out, help you get started on a way that you'll take it and blossom with it, hopefully, and do very good. But anyway, yeah, you're only as smart as part of the world you're standing in, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know. See you next time.